Welcome to another episode of Embracing Magic with me, Steph, and my lovely co-hosts Lizzie and Tony. Today we're going to be talking about divination. So divination, obviously, if you don't know, is all about receiving messages, trying to foresee the unseen in the future. And it's something that humans have done since time, and there are a lot of different types of divination, which we are going to discuss today. But also, divination comes from the Latin divinare, which means to foresee messages. The oldest writings, which I researched the other day, is from a Chinese book, where it talks about throwing bones into a fire and reading the charred bones, which I found really interesting. But yeah, so we're going to start by talking about preparing for divination and spiritual hygiene, because I think it's quite important before you go into a reading to be a little bit prepared, protected, cleansed. So yeah, how would you ladies prepare for divination?
I think it's quite a process, isn't it? I think that when we've had kind of like divination sessions as a group, I can take all day to get ready. Making sure that I get up and I've eaten really well through the day, that I've stayed really hydrated, and making sure that I've washed, sort of cleansed myself in the shower. And I actually think that dressing in sort of ceremonial clothing is quite important as well. It feels like it's part of the process of actually preparing for a type of divination work. So I kind of think about what it is that I'd like to wear that feels a bit formal. That's not going to be for everyone, but I think given the type of ceremonial magic that I'm into, that's part of it as well. I always like to make sure that I've got like a cup of herbal tea with me. I like to smoke cleanse as well. I know that everyone has their own type of, like, what kind of cleansing do you use?
I like smoke cleansing. I like the Herbie bundle.
I'm also a smoke cleanser too, but lots of people use cleansing sprays or crystals, like selenite wands or sound bells. So yeah, I think that's quite a personal choice, isn't it?
I think if you're sensitive to smoke, probably a spray is quite a good one.
Oh yeah, sprays are lovely.
I do have a really nice kind of piney, cedarwoody type spray. It's like a forest bathing spray. It's really nice. But my preference is always smoke cleansing. It feels, I've got something about smoke. That's not a word. There's something about smoke for me that really does feel purifying. So kind of cleansing myself, cleansing the space, that's all a process as well. Actually, even probably before that, when you talk about spiritual hygiene, actually ensuring that your space is clean and it's kind of set up ready before you start the process. So my altar space is pretty much where I do all of my practice, and it's made of wood, so I like to kind of like clean it and then polish it. And it's basically a period vanity piece. So I have like the mirror as well, the attached sort of mirror. So I like to clean the mirror down. I like to clean my tools, dust my crystals. I've got a really dusty house because I live in an Edwardian house and it's going through a renovation. So we've taken walls down and stuff. There's a lot of dust. But so yeah, dusting everything and cleaning it down and sort of like laying it all out ready to use. I mean, before we do any kind of practice, I kind of set the space up anyway, and that might be choosing particular crystals that I want to amplify certain intentions. So I actually really like to use crystal towers. For some reason, I've got a bit of a preference for towers. I think it's the shape. It just feels quite powerful to me. That kind of like sturdy, flat base, a bit like this, flat base, and kind of like directional energy.
Yeah.
I really like them. So yeah, I tend to use, and I would say that I'm quite quartz leaning for divination as well. So it's more amplification. And then I'll wear a talisman as well for divination.
Look at that talisman.
Yeah, yes. This is a citrine. But normally when I'm going to do divination, I'll wear something more like a Lemurian or like a like an aura quartz or like tourmaline if it's a bit dark leaning divination, just for some protection. What are some protection things that you do before starting with work?
I actually like to. I normally I would use black tourmaline in my practice, but I like to visualize a circle of protection around me.
So like a meditation type
Yeah,
thing.
so I will do like a meditation beforehand, and I actually like to physically use my hands as well to envision the circle being around me. So I know a lot of people obviously cast a circle. Is that something that you do?
I cast a circle in a group setting. I don't really cast a circle when I'm on my own. Like if I was to do like a one-on-one session with someone, I'd probably cast a circle.
Yeah.
But when I'm on my own, I feel like I find it quite easy to tune in without having to do that part of the process. But I feel like when you're in a group setting, that there's a sort of like a honing in of the energy.
Yeah.
So that actually calling in the quarters seems to really engage the whole circle.
And I like that you ask different people to be the quarters.
Yeah,
well. Really
I try
beautiful.
to do that when there's time to. I think that really kind of amplifies the different voices in the group. And it sort of takes away that idea that one person's leading it as well. Because I feel like it's more of a community, it's a shared responsibility. It's nice to have someone sort of like guiding, but I don't necessarily like this idea of a leader. I think it gives it a bit of a Jesus complex.
Too. I actually like in the moon ceremonies that I do to do a grounding ritual meditation with everyone, where we sort of like visualize being connected to the earth and being held by the earth and feeling safe. That's kind of a bit of a protective thing that I do before starting a session.
It's really interesting. I do sort of a bit of everything that you're saying. I
do everything.
I do it all. I exactly like you're saying. I like to get the space clean and ready, and then I would really pay attention to if we were doing, say, a ceremony together of the things that you have said, that the crystals that relate, or the colour of the candle. So I have it all ready, but then I always need to dress up. I don't know.
That's the ceremonial part
right.
that I was saying. It
That's
feels significant, doesn't it?
It does. I feel like I need to get the face on. I've got like a black dress I always wear, like a special black dress. And I feel like I have to, get myself into that ceremonial state.
Yeah.
And then I really love grounding and meditating. That's a big thing for me with my practice, is really meditating before going in, because I think you say this I think you both say it actually, about getting your mind into that space, into that.
I think it's really
zen.
important to be in a good mental place when going into any sort of witchcraft work, and especially receiving a reading from somebody else. I think it's really important to protect your energy, and also make sure that you're feeling okay, you're not anxious, or because I just don't think it's a good place to be in, receiving a reading from someone when you're feeling vulnerable.
Yeah,
basically.
That's really interesting you say that, because I am really bad at protecting my energy. I think that generally when you're a witch, you tend to be quite empathetic, and actually a really good sign of being dysregulated is if you can't stop yourself from crying if someone else is crying, because if your energy is grounded, you can hold them and not take on their pain. But
true.
You're quite connected emotionally to people in the coven and stuff like that, and actually when we've been in a retreat setting together, I really would love to get to a place where I can hear people's sort of trauma and not
cry,
feel like I'm experiencing it at the same time as well. I get very there's a difference between being empathetic and actually feeling someone's trauma. So I think that grounding process is essential, and actually anyone that's coming into witchcraft, aside from educating themselves on the past, which we've mentioned in a previous episode, I think protection magic is really important foundation for for learning about before you start doing any kind of divination work. And I did give someone some advice recently about they use a type of blood magic. And I said, I felt that it was important to say that you need to be very emotionally stable before you start using bodily fluids in witchcraft, because it can make you susceptible to kind of like the wrong kind of energy.
Yeah.
Even just like dysregulation and anxiety, all of that stuff. I think it's really important to properly ground yourself. So that might be taking off your shoes and socks and planting them on the floor, maybe outside, maybe inside. Definitely for me, it's showering, and like you said, kind of like that formal getting ready, the putting my face on. I mean, sometimes I don't feel like putting a full face of makeup on.
But it's like it's like setting your, even like your body and everything into this mode of divination. Like it's everything. It's your mind, it's your body, spirit.
Well, think about it in ancient times, you know, there would be a process of literally getting together, whether that be weaving someone's hair,
Yes,
putting flowers in their hair. Everyone would be wearing, you know, kind of dresses or kind of formal wear before, even cloaks, you know, like it with the Hermetic order, which more occultism really, I guess. The Golden Dawn and all that, they would wear kind of cloaks, you know, before they went into ceremony. Some people drink cacao as well, which is supposed to help connect you to spirit. Also, lotus flower tea, that's also supposed to be another one. I love lotus flower.
I've never had lotus flower.
It's blue lotus flower.
Oh,
You can also drink it, yeah.
Oh wow!
But you can only steep it for a certain amount of time, otherwise it's horrible. But so we said cleansing, washing, getting ready. For me, I use a particular type of music every time I perform that kind of work, which I use in the coven as well, but I also use it on my own.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just that kind of like that sound memory, you know, so you hear the music and you immediately kind of like takes you into that space of connecting with your practice. I can almost, it's like a really easy access point for me to get into that meditative state, really tune in, hone in my intention before I even start anything. I think that's also why I don't need to call in the 4 quarters, because I, you know, as soon as I hear that music, I'm in it. And I think Steph certainly has experience when I've been broken out of that space, when I've been in it, you know, like I was leading a spellcrafting workshop in person, and someone asked me a question when I was in the zone, and I just like, it was completely confused. Like
just totally thrown.
Yeah, just completely thrown. So yeah, and I think also again with the calling the 4 quarters, if you're representing it in the space that you're using, you don't necessarily have to call it in. But that's just my thoughts and feelings on it.
Yeah.
It feels very formal, and it makes sense to me as a group, but less so as, you know, just practicing on your own. But I think, like you said about someone doing a reading for you, you've also got to be really researched on whether that person is a reputable reader or not.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I think I would definitely want to take advice from other people as to who's a good reader, rather than just finding someone on the internet.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good thing to mention. Finding recommendations for people,
because you've had lots of readings, but from different people before, haven't you?
Yeah. And do you know what? I actually prefer. I just love going to Leonie for readings now. She's just amazing. So Leonie Maria Oracle. she's my recommendation anyway.
Well, I had that extraordinary experience of a reader coming up to me at
oh yeah, she was more of a medium. I'd say, yeah,
that's right. And it was quite interesting. I just immediately, and it was funny because I don't think I had protected myself. I wasn't expecting it.
No.
And basically said that my father was behind me, or I looked like him.
No, she said that your father was behind you.
Your father was behind you.
And it took you off guard.
Absolutely took me off guard. And I just went like, pew, like comedy tears went pew, 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 pew out my eyes. But it is that thing of...
Did you feel like he was with you?
What I found really fascinating is I always do feel a presence with me. And it is him. And in the past, you know, couple of years that he's passed away, the amount of people that have come up to me at different points saying, "Oh, you've got a very strong male presence behind you." It's quite incredible. But it was funny. I think I wondered if had I been a bit more protected in that moment, that I wouldn't have just crumbled so much. I think I wonder if
I also do think it's I think readers and mediums and things should have a little bit of a sense of responsibility not to read for people off guard like that, because you didn't ask for a reading.
Didn't ask for a reading.
You're grieving still.
Yeah.
You know? It's
And
irresponsible, in my opinion, to just offer that up without any kind of like consent.
Completely. Yeah. Was extraordinary. Steph and I were like,
yeah.
whoa.
I think I don't think I was there actually. I think I went
Turned
off somewhere,
around,
and
did
then you were sat there crying, and I was like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So I definitely think making sure your energy is protected at all times. I think in this situation we were at a spiritual event, so obviously there was a lot of energy and a lot of things going on in that space. But I do think that, you know, readers and mediums and things should, you know, keep their messages to themselves unless they're asked for, you know, to receive it.
Yeah, that person wants to receive.
Yeah, if they want to receive it, because, you know, they may not want to receive that message.
Yeah.
So
I don't think I've ever really had a very good tarot reading.
No.
And not I mean, I adore Leonie, but I've never had a long reading with her, so I've only had like a snapshot. But I have paid for long ones before with other people in the past, and I've never really had anything that I trusted. One voodoo lady told me I was full of righteous anger, and I'm like, duh. What, did you get the angry vibe from me? The justice vibes? You know, but I've had a few tarot readings, and like I'm always a little bit skeptical of how much I've been researched beforehand, if it's been like an internet exchange, only because of the detail people have gone into and how open I am with people on the internet about what I do in my life. And I'm just kind of like, I want to believe that you haven't looked, but I'm really skeptical about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will definitely do a long reading with Leonie because I 100% trust her.
Yeah. I think what we were saying about being mentally prepared to go into a reading with someone else is really, really, really important.
Yeah.
But also having the right questions. I think it's really important to understand what it is you're actually asking. I think that is another important one.
Yeah, because you're not supposed to use closed questions with divination, are you? So there's not really, you to avoid yes or no kind of answers, I guess, unless you're using a Ouija board, which is literally yes or no.
Or like a pendulum, or yes and no coin.
But like, I guess when it comes to stuff like tarot, you want some more open questions so that you can interpret the cards.
Yeah.
I just think it's always better to kind of like learn how to use a divination tool and do readings for yourself.
Well, let's move on to divination tools then, and different methods of divination. I think we should start with talking about the ones that we sort of know and a bit more common, probably ones that we use for ourselves. So what are your favourite methods of divination?
Well, I mean, I think a starting divination tool for me were runes. I think that they were a really good first step before moving on to tarot. I love tarot. I'm way more tarot inclined than oracle, although I'm starting to enjoy oracle now as well. But yeah, I had my first set of runes, which I still have now, are made out of quartz. And they're kind of multifaceted, so they're really easy to use and they're very easy to interpret. So in a way, they're kind of like, it's an easier sort of access to divination, I think.
So for those that don't know, what are runes?
So they're stones that can fall on usually one of two sides, and one side will have a image. What do you call it? Like, because you call it a rune, but like it's part of
a symbol.
Thank you. A symbol from a particular alphabet. Let's say it's the Elder
Fardic.
Elder
Fardic.
The Elder one,
which is quite a well-known one.
It's pretty
I'd say
ancient. I mean, there's obviously like a Viking one. There's like ancient Norse / Viking, Anglo-Saxon. There's lots of them. There's an Icelandic one, which I'm starting to learn now.
That's exciting.
Wow.
there's a lot of crossover with the Icelandic and the Norwegian witchcraft, but yeah, so it'll have a similar. So you kind of like you'll have a question in your mind, and you'll throw the runes onto the table before you, or the ground, or whatever, and you'll interpret the symbols that are facing upwards. So that was my first divination tool, and I moved from that to tarot. And I can't remember the name of the deck that I mean, I've gone through a few decks in my life, but I finally found one that I fully connect with. It's taken I bought a lot of tarot decks and never really connected with them. And I think that's my biggest piece of advice, is wait until you feel like you connect with one before you purchase them, because otherwise you just end up with loads of decks that you don't use.
And tarot is a really ancient practice. I mean, I think the ancient Egyptians used to use tarot.
Yeah, well, I think that the earliest is the 1400s, isn't it? On record.
I did read something about ancient Egyptians.
Well, there might have been like a version, like
maybe,
like a more kind of like a shorter version, because there's so many cards, isn't it? Like
different
78
versions,
or something.
Yeah. But are you talking about the French courts? That was when it first really appeared. Yeah, in the 1400s. Yeah.
I thought it was Milan.
Actually, I think it might be 1300s in the French courts.
Oh, okay. I mean, I actually have a version of the first ever tarot deck that was ever made, and it's only something like 20 something cards. I can't remember what it's called. It's fairly new to me, but yeah, I have a deck that I like now. But I am starting to enjoy Oracle as well. I'm definitely more tarot leaning, but I love the Season of the Witch decks. They're so beautifully illustrated. And they're actually quite profound as well. I think they're made by Tatiana something. I can't remember her name, but she's amazing. But I've also fallen in love with the artist Bat for Lashes, the musician.
Oh, yes.
She made her own deck, and it is so like the actual booklet that comes with it and the exercises that come with it are so stunning, and they come with inspiration, like sonic inspiration. So there'll be like music suggestions for you to listen to, or there'll be like films to watch to sort of go with the card that you've chosen. And they are, honestly, it's super profound. It's so beautiful. I'm so glad that I purchased it, because I've been looking at it for so long, and I was one of my local shops, she kind of like told me more about it, and so basically runes, tarot, and one of my major divination practices that I use all the time is scrying. All the time. I'm big into scrying, whether that's scrying into a mirror, scrying into water, or scrying into a candle flame, or like just a flame in general.
So can you tell us a bit about what scrying is?
So it's kind of similarly with interpreting symbols. What you're doing is and smoke, scrying into smoke. But you're interpreting the movement in whatever you're looking at. So for instance, with water, it might be we've done it in the coven where I led a class, and it was a bowl of water and we were pouring candle wax in. So I would give a prompt, and everyone in the coven would ask a question, pour the wax in, and interpret the symbol that they were seeing in the water. You can also do this with ink. You can kind of do it with anything, really. But primarily I use water. It's very, very common to use a crystal ball or a mirror, like an obsidian mirror in particular, but any mirror really works, because again, it's a liminal space. It's a portal to another dimension. So, but equally, you can just do it into a candle flame. You hold the question in your head, you soften your gaze into the tool that you're using, and you interpret the symbols that you see. It's always really handy to have a notebook with you and kind of like write down what you see.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you see things like symbols or animals, it's good to look up what those represent. And that kind of can help you with your answer. But for me, it's like a really easy thing to do now.
Yeah.
So they're probably my main three.
I think we kind of really brushed over tarot, really, but I think
so complex.
Yeah. Obviously, the most well-known tarot deck is the Rider-Waite deck, and there are lots of different decks that have been now created, spurred from the Rider-Waite deck. It's probably the easiest deck, I think, to use to get started with tarot, because of the way the imagery is laid out. It's quite, once you get used to it, it's quite easy to interpret. But yeah, what else can we say on tarot?
Well, it's funny because I was just thinking the journey that I had was I was with Oracle first because I really felt I connected with Oracle. It was only really recently I have a Rider-Waite deck, this lovely tarot that we're talking about.
Oracle is definitely easier.
Right. That's kind of my gut instinct. It was like, okay, I can work with Oracle and moving into tarot. Because it does feel so dense and complex and so ancient. But again, I agree with you. I think that deck in particular, well, just resonates with me as a starting point, is really, really lovely. So I really have only that tarot deck for now because I want to select the tarot decks that really talk to me, that really grab me. I'm a major fan of Rebecca Campbell's Oracle decks. I love them. I just think the imageries are beautiful. I have one like the Rose Oracle deck and Healing Waters and all her lovely. But that was my journey, was Oracle, now coming into tarot. But like you say, tarot is complicated and dense and
it takes a type of study, really, doesn't it?
You have to, yeah, I think you do. I think it is a real study. And there is I got the Rider-Waite tarot deck book with it, but it's interesting. You talk to different people and they say, yes, absolutely study, but then a lot of your intuition is going into it as well. So it's a real art. It's like a beautiful art form. So that's my sort of journey with tarot.
Yeah. I think my chosen, I do actually really enjoy a pendulum. I do like using a pendulum, but yeah, tarot and oracle.
Does anyone hear tarantula when you say pendulum? Sorry,
just you, Muso. Yeah, tarot and oracle are huge. I don't particularly resonate with the traditional tarot, the traditional Rider-Waite artwork. It doesn't speak to me.
Yeah.
It really speaks to me.
Yeah, I don't. I just can't.
Speaks to me.
Connect with it. I don't know why.
Because you don't ever use a Rider-Waite deck.
But I do use a Rider-Waite inspired deck.
Do you?
Yeah. By an artist called Dreamy Moons. Well, her name is Annie Taravosa. I probably said that wrong. Sorry, Annie. But yeah, I love her artwork and I have done for a very long time. And she's created a version of the Rider-Waite deck, and it's just beautiful, really stunning. And there was another deck that, I mean, the artwork was a little bit bright for me, but I really connected with it, and it was the Modern Witch Tarot deck. And it was all like really powerful women, and I just really connected with that. And some people find that, because obviously tarot is supposed to have like a masculine and what am I trying to say, feminine energy. So it's supposed to have both. But the way that she illustrated it was more like feminine representing females. So, but yeah, I just really I loved the artwork. It was a little bit brighter than something I'd normally choose, being like
golden black
goth at heart. But yeah, it's interesting that I couldn't quite resonate with the traditional artwork, which was really weird. But I could resonate with the more
the like interpretation of
a different interpretation of it.
Yeah,
because I do really like the Rider-Waite, the cards. But I just don't like the traditional artwork.
It's probably quite handy though, isn't it? Because it allows you more room to interpret rather than having to do the study and being like, oh, well, that means this, and it leaves you open to your own sort of like, interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely. Right then, well, what are other methods? Tassiography.
Yes.
Tassiography.
I was going to say, I love
tassiomancy, which is tea leaf reading.
Yeah.
Which we had an amazing workshop in the Coven.
I loved it. It was awesome.
Fiona from Magick in the Leaves.
Brilliant.
And yeah.
Yeah.
You loved it?
I loved it. And I've done it a couple of times since.
Have you?
So I got the lovely, is it Fortune Cup? It's a white cup.
I've got that one too.
Yeah, it's amazing. And inside you have the sort of different sections. and in the workshop she said like a plain
would be best.
a plain cup, and bigger tea leaves. She was saying, wasn't she, about sort of more like thicker leaved tea rather than small.
Yeah. So black tea is
is the best
to use.
But I've really enjoyed it, and I am really enjoying what I loved about the tasseography is it really was over to your visual intuition, like the visual, and into your gut and interpreting it. Like I did one the other day, like I felt like there was a little girl with her arms out, and I felt like that was me now, like going yay, things like that. And then of course there are all the symbols. There's like the bridge, about new beginnings, and all the different things, like arrows are going in this direction, like going in a different direction. But I really loved that, and I on a personal, I really connected. That felt it just feels really sacred and ancient, and
I really enjoyed the tea leaf reading.
Yeah.
So if you've never done tea leaf reading at home, I think the idea is that you brew a cup of tea with the loose leaf herbs in the teacup, and then whilst you set the intentional question and drink the tea, and then after all of the liquid has gone, you turn the teacup upside down, leave it for a few moments, and then
tap it 3 times.
I forgot
3
about
times.
that. Tap it 3 times and twist it round.
Oh wait, there's the throwing of the cup first before you put it over.
You sort of zhuzh.
Oh yeah,
little...
so I've got it all wrong.
Sorry, it's all coming back to me. It was such a good workshop.
It was. And then once you've left it upside down, you then turn it back up, and you can interpret the images within the cup. Yep. So the images that the tea leaves have made within the cup. And then I think Fiona said that a good interpretation books are dream books.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yes, that's right.
So yeah, love it.
I guess because in dream books you get the representation, so it'll be like a fox, and they symbolize this. You get that in dream books, don't you?
Yeah,
so they're
exactly.
quite handy for that, because I remember doing that tea leaf reading workshop, and just that the images were so clear.
Yeah, like
I saw a flying horse, and I was like, when are you going to get a flying horse and tea leaves? That's so weird. And I saw like a crane as well. I saw, and I think a dragonfly. I saw really interesting shapes, and I was just like, those aren't things that I would naturally see or be drawn to. And I just found it really interesting that you're kind of at the mercy of the leaves.
Yeah,
how they fall.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And it was lovely because she did say to begin with, when you're first doing it, is pick out the images that are sort of the clearest, like that, like a crane.
She say to work round as well.
Yes.
Clockwise.
Yeah.
So it almost paints a story around the cup.
The cup.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
It was really good. It was
really good.
I think we all really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, we did.
It was fantastic.
Well, I guess naturally we probably be leading on to dream divination. So, which is fairly obvious one, really. Obviously, you kind of receive messages in your dreams. A good way to remember your dreams is obviously having something beside your book to record your dreams straight away, because we do naturally forget them quite quickly, don't we?
Yeah.
Like my mushroom dream last night.
Well, you remember that within the podcast. But there are lots of different techniques to remember dreams as well. And I can't remember any of them. So
I have to have the book like next to on my bedside table, but I generally wake up around about 3 or 4 in the morning. Actually, probably not 3.
Oh, interesting.
But probably 4 o'clock in the morning. And so I have to almost kind of like record it straight away, whether it's like in the middle of the night or really early in the morning before going back to sleep, because I find that I'm able to get into that lucid dreaming state. Once I try to go back to sleep, I can kind of go back. If I'm having an interesting dream, I can go back into that dream, but I have more control over what's going on because I'm kind of in that more kind of lucid state. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like when you're going into your deep subconscious, which is for me around that kind of like 3-4 o'clock point, that must be like your REM period of sleep.
When you sink.
Yeah. And none of it makes sense. And so I wake up, and when I can, I try and record it straight away. And if I can't write it down because I'm too tired, I'll write it in my notes on my phone, and then fall asleep, and then I'll forget about it, and then I'll find it another day, and I'll be like, oh, that was really weird.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good habit to get into, to record them.
Do you know, I've never done that. I've never recorded a dream, and it's making me think I really need to do it, because I do that. I will wake up and I've been in a lucid state, and I think, oh, I really want to remember that, and then I go, and then I've gone.
Or maybe like a voice note would be handy.
Oh,
yeah, voice note really quickly. You know,
That's
a
a
really
good
good
idea.
idea.
memo.
This dream was about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
really
I
good
have
idea.
really gnarly dreams as well.
So do I. Like
Yeah.
really vivid, crazy, weird stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. You want me to tell you some of them?
Yeah.
I did once have a dream, and I used to paint my dreams actually a very long time ago, because I did fine art at school, and one of my dreams I dreamt that there was this beach, and there was all these sunbeds, and all the people on it didn't have real heads. They just had like plant heads.
Whoa.
Yeah. See? Weird
Wow.
dreams, right?
That is a weird
So I
dream.
painted it.
Wow.
But yeah.
Have you still got the painting?
I've probably got it somewhere.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder
Yeah.
what that means.
Who knows? Can somebody tell us?
Amazing.
But yeah, so dream divination is another one. Astrology,
Mm.
that's another one. I've had astrology readings before, where you can look at the different placements depending on your birth chart in the future to see what would make sense for you. I mean, I think that's how it works.
Yeah, oh, gee, I'm
But,
having one of them in April. There's
Are
this
you?
lovely lady I go to. It's amazing. She does reflexology. You lie on a bed and have your legs up. So she does reflexology and reads your birth chart
At the same
at
time.
the same time.
That's
Wow.
really cool. I
It's
wanna
That
go
is
to
so
cool.
cool. She's amazing. She's called Maggie. She's absolutely fantastic. She's been doing it for years. She trained in reflexology, and then her other passion was astrology. She's a phenomenal birth chart reader.
I love that she's blended the two together.
Yeah, it's amazing.
great.
She says she gets so much from your feet. Like that,
Interesting.
there's so much coming from you from your feet. She's delightful, and she has real.
She's a toe witch.
She's a toe witch. She's a real crone energy as well, which I love. She's really, really amazing. So I saw her last year, and she said, "Come back to me in April. I want to look at your birth chart again. I want
And
to.
your feet.
I want to see your lovely little feet."
You do have tiny
little
feet.
feet.
I've got tiny little feet. They're like key rings. Key ring size. And she wants to do that. She wants to look forward with the birth chart and see what's happening in the.
It is
It's
interesting.
fascinating.
Definitely one that would confuse me trying to do it myself.
Yeah, it's the house placements and everything. But I think it is. I think it's extraordinary. It is something that I do want to delve into. I do really want to get, because I started to get really into it. Because I'm like bounding along in all these different areas at the moment. But
You're like in your puberty season right
just-
now.
yeah,
Like I'm a solar witch, but I still like all of
astrology,
these other
and I like
things.
this, and I like this, and I like this. But astrology is something that I'm quite drawn to, and I do really want to, because there's exactly like you were saying. I find it amazing how so many people, if they look at their birth chart, they're like, "Well, that makes sense."
Yeah.
So that, for me, that's something in it. I think it's beautiful.
Palmistry
Oh,
is another one. Have any of you had a palm reading?
Once.
never.
I have.
Go on.
Well, do you mind? Do you
You're
mind?
like, you're going to have 3 children in your future. And you're like, get away.
So, obviously, for those that don't know, palmistry is reading the lines on and markings on your hand. But yeah, what was your reading like? You remember?
It was in up north in Morecambe, and I was on tour, and I met this lady, and but she did say, she said, "I'm going to live a very long time," which was lovely, but she did say I'd have one child, which
Interesting.
is not true, is it? It's not happened, but but it was really fascinating. Some things but again, I don't know. She knew that I was a performer. Like, she obviously, like, at the time I was performing, so she did know things about me were extraordinary. But again, is she just reading the slight cynical side of me? Was like, are you just reading that I'm
Yeah.
bubbly and outgoing and blah, blah, blah,
It's
blah.
difficult to find the
tricky.
people that are genuine. with
Yeah,
it.
this is it.
Numerology. is
Oh,
another one.
No,
Obviously,
me and numbers just
Yeah,
don't.
me too.
meanings and numbers. So if you like see like 111
Right.
pop up on your phone and stuff, there's meanings behind seeing different numbers.
Was that 111's an angel number, isn't it? Did I make that up?
1111. I don't know.
think you're
I
right.
think there's I mean, there are lots of different angel numbers. Yeah, I know.
I don't really work with angels. I'm more this way.
But I think, from what I understand, numerology is a separate thing to angel numbers.
Right.
Okay.
From what I understand, could be wrong.
What do you understand?
Numbers? No, I don't understand numbers.
No, I don't.
But basically, different numbers have different meanings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically numerology in a nutshell.
Mm.
Can you think of any others?
I think Ogham is one. It's one of the earliest forms of written language, which was done with like lines. So you might have like a straight line and then like one or like a two, or like, do you know what I mean? So it was like one of the earliest forms of written communication. And I think that people tend, a bit like runes, they tend to put symbols on bits of wood or stick and kind of throw those as well.
Oh wow, okay.
Sometimes I think they're linked with particular trees as well. But yeah, not one that, I mean, I went to the Isle of Man. My friend is from there, and me and another friend went over and visited her last January or February. And a lot of the Isle of Man's history is about Ogham, which is really interesting. Probably a bit like Malta. It's a little island that gets like battered by the wind, and it was attacked so many times by Vikings and stuff like that. So it's got a really rich, interesting history. But yeah, Ogham is definitely one of them. Did we all just take a big breath to say something at the same time?
I was going to say omens apparently is a method of divination. So, walking over 3 drains.
Oh,
bad luck.
Broken mirror.
It's
making me think of Blood Brothers, shoes upon the table, a
spider's been killed. Someone broke the looking glass. Thank you for that.
Musical interlude.
Yeah. But also there's good omens too, like seeing a rainbow and
A
butterflies,
souls of
robins.
passed over, yeah.
White feather.
Yeah. So yeah, omens.
Probably bad omens are things like crows, like a murder of crows.
Murder of crows.
Or a vulture.
Yeah.
Or seeing
A dead frog, I think, is a bad omen.
a dark figure in the background.
Yeah, I mean, yep.
Pretty ominous.
Yeah, that's definitely a bad omen.
It's like a one magpie, that a bad omen, because you have to salute it and hello, Mr. Magpie.
I don't know if it is a bad omen.
Is that bad?
Oh, yeah, it's 1 for sorrow, isn't it?
1 for sorrow, 2 for joy.
3 for a girl, 4 for a boy,
Hey.
5 for silver, 6 for gold, 7 for a secret never to be told. It goes on and on and on, but that is all I remember.
Wow.
Well, you remembered more than I remembered.
That's because
Good
I'm
memory.
superstitious.
Leonie's really into magpies as well.
Yeah, don't step on a crack or you'll fall and break
Make
your
it
back.
Wow.
Yep.
There's lots of ones like that. Salt over the
Interesting.
shoulder,
Oh, yes.
blind the devil.
Yeah.
Unless it's your pal and you can make him a shot.
Give him a biscuit.
Give him a biscuit. We're very different, aren't we? I'm like tequila bro.
Digestive.
Wow.
I was thinking as well, goddess divination?
Oh, invoking deities.
Invoking deities. That's one that came, because I do that with Brigid all the time.
And what, and asking for guidance?
Asking for guidance, asking for support, sort of to, if there is a question coming up, that I ask for her guidance and support and help. And I have like a Brigid kind of oracle deck, which is beautiful, and the specific altar to her. But I'm reading I'm reading a couple of beautiful books on Brigid, and we touched on it before but you give an offering to Brigid.
You never just take.
Yeah.
You have to kind of offer something first.
Offer to her. So I'm looking at all these different ways to like offer something to her whilst I'm asking for guidance, and I find it so helpful, and it really just balances me out, and I sort of feel like I've asked for her support, and now I will go forward and it will the
Very similar to like my work with my ancestors, really.
Right.
It's that, that offering of something, and then, asking for support with my intention or with a question.
that's
or,
really, yeah.
It's not that dissimilar, really.
Mm.
I think another one that I did probably more as a kid than I do now is cloud busting.
Love this.
Yeah. Which is about manipulating the weather. So I guess it's kind of a little bit like meditation, but your intention is to change the weather in some way, and you do that kind of by reading the clouds.
That's aeromancy, isn't it?
That's amazing.
Where you're reading the weather as well, like, and storms and
Yeah.
mean something, usually something foreboding.
What is that other little one? It's like red in the morning, shepherd's
Oh
warning.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
Red at night, shepherd's delight.
Shepherd's delight. Yeah.
How many of these weird things can I remember?
So good, I love it. Speaking of weird things, well, it's not necessarily weird because I'm pretty sure we all have had one of these. But do you remember the little the little plastic fishes that you used to get?
Yes!
That you used to put on your bar?
That's not divination,
So
is it?
good. I mean, what was it called? Like a fortune telling fish?
I love
What's
that
it going to do?
fish.
And it's like, oh, it's curled up again. Wow.
Got it in a Christmas cracker.
We were doing divination all our lives.
Like, oh, these schmucks, I've just sold them a piece of plastic in the shape of a fish.
They were great though. I remember loved it as a kid though. Getting one of those in a cracker.
And its tail would go.
Yeah.
I wonder if a mood ring can be like divination.
Oh,
Yeah,
Remember those from the
maybe.
90s?
Oh, I
Yeah.
loved a mood ring.
I think I've still got one somewhere,
Oh.
but I am a hoarder.
Anyway, back to proper methods of divination.
Like the fish.
Well, mediumship and channeling. We touched on that a little bit, but also I guess Ouija,
Necromancy,
necromancy.
working with the dead
Yeah.
from Bone Tone.
For Bone Tone. You have a new nickname every time.
I've never said that before, I
Oh my
promise.
god. Well, that's hashtag
Bone Tone.
bone tone.
Can you please change
I am
your...
normally called Big Tone, and we were talking about being a bone witch earlier, and then I was talking about being a boner witch, and now I'm just Bone Tone.
Bone
I think you should change your Instagram handle to Bone Tone.
No, I don't think so. I think I get the wrong type of attention.
So yeah, essentially channeling spirits, I guess, for mediumship and
Or like, invoking the dead.
yeah.
For whatever deadly things you want to do. Like there's a lot of Ouija boards get a bad rap, man.
Yeah.
People are like, don't mess with that stuff. I'm like, it's fine.
Sounds like I do it on a daily.
Not a daily.
I
not
don't need a
daily.
Ouija board for that. I think that's a bit of tact, to be honest. In my opinion,
Yeah.
I think you can connect with the dead without doing that.
Mm.
Just go to a graveyard, have a nice little conversation with someone, and then say, the conversation's ended here, and I'm going home. Please don't follow me.
Please don't come with me. Thank you.
I do think that's beautiful though, like visiting graveyards.
I
Like
love it.
I recently been looking into some of my dad's side of the family, the British side, and my uncles traced the family tree right back. Well, my dad started it, and then my uncle finished it back to the 1700s, I think.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I actually have someone in my family tree called James Bond.
What?
But I think it's
Not to be confused with the more famous James Bond.
well.
Could be.
But yeah, he located one of the gravestones of my great grandfather. So I really want to go and visit, and I want to bring an offering, and all of that side of the family were gardeners. So something plant related
Oh, nice.
would be a nice
Amazing.
offering to bring them. But yeah, they all had like a connection to Painshill Park as well in Cobham, which I find
That's
fascinating.
incredible.
Yeah, I found one of my great grandfathers is buried in Dover in Tower Hamlet, I think it is. It's got a
wow.
proper like big Victorian grave. So I'd quite like to do the same.
Yeah, I think that's quite a nice thing.
Mm.
I don't think that's
Communing.
morbid, do you? I think it's
No,
quite nice.
but that's
some people
honouring.
might think it is, but
I want to go
don't
to
know, I
Isle
think
of
it's lovely.
Tiree. I talked about it before in Scotland. They have a graveyard there, and I really want to go because I'm the MacDonald clan, and loads of them apparently are buried there in this little cemetery. So I think it is honouring. I think it's really, really
and connecting as well with the
Yeah.
past. Yeah.
Well, shall we talk about some more sort of weirder forms of
Or the lesser known
known
Yeah.
ones? Maybe not.
yes, I love-
Maybe not
that's the
weird.
one I loved.
Might not be so weird to some people, but go on, Lizzie.
Yeah, you go first.
I love this. I'm going to say this wrong. Batrachomancy. Is divination by frogs, newts, or toads.
So, what do you do with them?
So, here is the method. You observe the motion of the frog.
Sorry, I was just hearing motion in the ocean. Sorry.
Motion in the ocean. You observe the motion of the frog and the way it moves towards the cards or items that may represent choices. So the cards are out and the frog, and that's the noise it makes, and chooses the card. And it says here, Yoruba priests use divination trays from birds, mudfish, frogs, and snakes.
Mudfish.
Mudfish.
What is a mudfish?
What's a little muddy fish?
Don't look at me.
Fish that is well muddy. Frogs.
Someone's going to go in the comments.
Sorry.
You idiots.
But what is a mudfish? Frogs and snakes as part of their process of crossing boundaries between the material and spiritual realms on behalf of those seeking spiritual guidance. So animals, and it's interesting, yeah, reptiles and birds are the main sort of symbol.
Because there's different ones for animals. I'm not going to remember all of the actual names, but there's one specifically for cats.
Oh.
So obviously cats, I think crossing your path from left to right. I think in England that's seen as a good thing. But in America or elsewhere it's seen as a negative omen.
Negative omen.
And then there's chickens.
Oh.
Which I think, I can't remember what culture this comes from, but they used to lay out the alphabet with the chicken feed, and whatever way the chicken pecked the feed would read out a message.
Wow.
Clever chickens.
So clever.
Such
It
clever
says-
little
it
chickens.
says here
And
as well.
spiders as
Oh,
well.
spiders.
And in West African cultures, they used to have the spiders carry cards around with symbols on them.
How?
I don't
In a
know.
backpack.
Yeah.
On a little backpack.
A little backpack.
Observing the way spiders moved cards marked with symbols.
Wow.
So it was in West African tribes.
Big ass spiders.
Yeah.
Is it?
Interesting.
I've got to just
That one's called arachnomancy. obviously.
I would not.
pass.
I'll part. I'm not my fave. But I was just saying here, there's the one thing about the froggy is it says some put a frog in a vase with a ladder, and if it climbs the ladder, the weather is supposed to be great. Which I love.
Wow, that's almost impossible.
A poor little frog. But do you know what I was just thinking there as well, just connecting to the frog as Shakespeare's Macbeth, like Eye of Newt, Toe of Frog. You know, when
the
they're
witches, the
the wit-
fates in the beginning.
in the
yeah.
fates in the beginning, they talk about frogs and newts and toads. So I do find that
But really, they were just putting them in
I
glass
think they're
jars with
putting
a
them in
ladder.
yeah, just with a little ladder.
They probably
to
put
see if
them
the
in a
weather
big
was
boiling
nice.
pot like a cauldron.
Yeah, oh, poor little
Poor
froggy.
froggies.
Sad.
I've got one. Occultomancy. I think that's how you pronounce it. And it's a bit like the tea leaf reading, but you do it with needles. And you either do it in a bowl with a little bit of water in, so like the tea leaf reading, or you do it onto a flat surface with flour. And you kind of, again, you read the symbols. So I guess that could be metal needles, but it could also just be like pine needles and kind of like foresty needles.
Needles.
So that's another one.
Good one.
Then is it anthromancy, reading flowers?
Mm.
So essentially, as we know, flowers have all different meanings. But I think there was a particular way of reading where you'd see what flower that you're drawn to, and then whatever one that you pick, you analyze the flower from stem upwards the different surfaces of the flower as well, and that would contribute to the reading.
Wow.
That's from what I understood from it anyway. But yeah,
They had a lot of free time back then, didn't they?
so many different methods.
Amazing.
So many different ones. There's more as well.
I like abacamancy, which sounds a bit like
Abba.
abracadabra.
Oh my god, I love
Abacamancy,
that.
which is reading dust, which would be easy for me in my super dusty house. Or yeah, like incense dust. And you just look for symbols in the dust patterns.
One of the ones that I found fascinating was molluscopy, which is reading moles on your body and linking them to astrology, apparently.
Maybe you could just like draw it like, you know, a picture by numbers, you know, you could go draw out the mole's picture.
But there was also one of reading people's faces.
Oh yes, I think I
don't
was
like
reading.
that.
No, it's
But
kind of
what are they
weird.
on reading my
Yeah,
face.
about reading the eyes and the
Oculomancy or something like that.
oculomancy. That's right.
Was
yeah,
that what it was called?
something like that. But like something. Yeah, it was along that vein, but of reading the eyes as a divination. What was going on in the eyes?
Don't look at my eyes.
Please don't look at my eyes.
And I think it's teleesthesia, which is reading the sensations or itches of your body.
Your body.
So if you get like an itchy hand or
That's not fibromyalgia.
No. It's actually a reading. It's giving you a message.
You're just deeply connected with the divine.
Love that.
Geomancy I found very confusing. I actually watched a girl on YouTube trying to explain it. And what she did was write out numbers 1 to 16, and then she focused on the question that she had, and then she was making marks and then just stopping intuitively. And then what she did was like counted up all the marks and then started making these like dotted diagrams that then she
Whoa.
fitted into a larger I think it's called a geomatic shield.
That
Whoa.
sounds really complicated.
Yeah,
I know.
that's really hard.
And
Impressive, but complicated.
I was just like, not for me.
Lazy witch.
I'm a lazy witch. I'll stick to my tarot cards, thanks. Thank you very much. Brilliant.
Or halomancy, which is salt reading. That's probably quite common still, I'd
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah. Salt reading how?
I don't know. I didn't read that far.
Is it get I don't know the shapes that it would create if you were to spill it?
Yeah, I don't know if it would probably be
Like
like
this?
shaking onto
Yeah.
a surface, or maybe you kind of like
Throw.
ta-da,
Ta-da.
you know, and it kind of like lands. Maybe you read that.
Mm.
There's also aura reading as well, which is
I thought you were going to say something. Don't worry, love. It's oral reading. Might have to mark this one 18 plus. Sorry.
Parental guidance.
Well, obviously aura reading is quite common still, isn't it?
Sorry. Yeah.
You can still I've seen people doing it at spiritual fairs and stuff. They have like an aura reading
Mm.
and essentially, you know, we all have an aura, and it said that we have different colours or auric fields
yes.
around us. But also I was reading that the different shapes of your aura can mean things as well.
Wow.
Well, you can get that. You can have those like aura photos, those color aura photos. Is that what it's called?
Mm.
Yes.
There's a place in London. I don't know if it's one of like, it's not Treadwell's, but like a shop like that. You know, like a
You can have a colour.
witchcraft or kind of like a spiritual kind of bookshop. One of them definitely does aura photography,
Mm.
because we've had a few people on the coven that have shared their photos and the color that they have around them.
So interesting.
It is really interesting.
Yeah.
Dice is another one, which is a really
yes.
old one, which I think was very common in ancient Rome, where you'd have 3 dice and you'd either have a round mat or draw a 12-inch circle with chalk, and you'd cast the dice and then basically add up the number on all of the dice, and that number would represent or mean something. And I think if anything fell outside of the circle, you'd either do your reading again or you'd disregard the
The dice.
the dice outside the circle. But that was really a common one.
It's the same as apparently dominoes. There was a domino divination, which is a similar thing of throwing the dominoes, and again the numbers, but again in a circle. So it could be the same thing. Dice dominoes, and the numbers.
Sponsored by Domino's.
Sponsored by Domino's Pizza. Sorry,
that's not what I meant. I meant the game. I was like, there's going to be a resurgence.
I just realised I said it.
Sales.
But I was like, that's not what she meant.
There's also hydromancy as well, which is observing
Water.
patterns in water. Yeah. So
I think that makes quite a lot of sense actually, because even in still water, you can kind of make out patterns and symbols probably.
Yeah.
So obviously we've covered loads of divination practices. I still reckon though, if you want to start practicing this type of divination work, it's probably easier to start with tarot or runes, or maybe even a pendulum, because I guess a pendulum's like kind of a yes/no situation. Oracle's a bit more open to interpretation, and then tarot leads you to sort of do a little bit of study. But yeah, that's probably a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, I think we've come to the end of our episode on divination. I've really enjoyed diving into some of the ones that I have never heard of before. Hopefully we've taught you guys some ones that you didn't know, but if you know any other ones that we haven't mentioned, please do let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And yeah, we'll see you all soon for another episode of Embracing Magic.